The Dream 100 is there's always a smaller number of better buyers than there are all buyers. That means marketing and selling to them is cheaper than marketing and selling to...
I've had clients that came to me, I've been following you for a year and I've been meaning to reach out and I just decided to reach out now. Like, hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Perfectly Mentored. I'm your host, Jason Portnoy. On this episode, I'm joined by Amanda Holmes, who is the CEO of Chet Holmes International, which has worked with over 250,000 businesses worldwide. At the age of 24, Amanda inherited her father's multi-million-dollar enterprise, which specializes in helping companies double their sales. She has merged her father's proven process with her own forward-thinking ideas to connect the old-school sales process with hybrid online and offline instant gratification, short attention span that we see of consumers today. Her success has made it clear that she was born to lead. In the first 2 years of taking helm of the company, Amanda increased leads by 1,176% and doubled coaching clients 2 years in a row. Since then, she's continued to scale the company, making the impact worldwide and continued double-digit growth. Based on her father's New York Times bestseller, The Ultimate Sales Machine, which was voted the top 10 most recommended sales books of all time, Amanda's mission is to teach the last and most important lesson that her father never got to reveal to radically change the lives of those passionate about success in sales. You're not going to want to miss this episode. Check it out. Amanda, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Jason. Happy to finally be here.
I know. I was awful. For people who need the context, we had scheduling issues and we had to reschedule on Amanda a couple of times. And I hate doing that on a guest. I hate when guests do it to me, let alone who am I to do it to Amanda? And here I am. But here we are, and I'm happy to have you here.
So happy to be here.
For the people who are listening who want a little bit more context, just the quick rundown a little bit on who you are and just a little bit of background on you. Let's kind of jump into it from there, and then we'll take it from there.
Let's start with the founder of the company, my father, Chet Holmes. So he made his big break working for a billionaire by the name of Charlie Munger. Are you familiar?
Another name that sounds very familiar.
No. Co-chairman of Berkshire Hathaway.
Yeah, he's familiar. Like
Warren Buffett's business partner.
Warren Buffett? That name sounds familiar too. Of course we know who Charlie Munger is. And if you're listening and you don't know, turn it off and don't listen to my podcast anymore. I'm just kidding. Yeah.
I literally did a keynote for Berkshire Hathaway, and I was so thrilled that I finally made it to that stage because my father did so much with Charlie. And then I asked the room, how many of you know who Charlie Munger is? Raise your hand. And I got like 2 people out of 600. And I was just looking at them like, I am in Berkshire Hathaway right now. How do you not know your co-chairman? So, anyways,
every one of those people were fired, by the way, after.
Oh my God!
Massive layoff.
So
massive
shocking.
layoff.
The 2 people that knew came to me after my talk and was like, "How is this possible that these people didn't know who that was? That was crazy."
We don't know our boss.
I know.
Yeah.
Every other room, I say, how many of you know Charlie Munger? And I get more people in other rooms than I did in Berkshire Hathaway itself. But anyways, so he got his big break working for Charlie Munger, and he doubled the sales of 9 different companies for Charlie, all within 12 to 15 months, and several of them multiple years consecutively. So he realized that he had this system for doubling sales. So then he went on and cold called his way into 60 of the Fortune 500 and made them clients. And then he said, you know what? If 90% of the people that work in the United States are from small businesses, then really the backbone of America comes from small to medium-sized businesses. So he started working and helping small to medium-sized businesses. So he wrote The Ultimate Sales Machine, which became one of the top 10 most recommended marketing and sales books of all time in some lists, they say. And so some people say it. And we've assisted 250,000 businesses over the last 30 years now, and generated our clients over $2 billion from what we can equate from some math of some of our best. I couldn't do it for all of them, but I do know we've generated billions, assisted our clients to generate billions of dollars. And the whole concept is really simple. Thank goodness, because my father got diagnosed with cancer at 55, or actually 54, and then he passed at 55. And at the time I was a singer, not involved in the business whatsoever. I just released my 4th record. I was touring. I'd been to music school. And then here I got handed a couple hundred staff, all double, if not triple my age. And I knew nothing about it. And I was so in over my head. I had panic attacks. I never hear anybody talk about this, but I had micro panic attacks where like you're just perpetually in this place of like you can't catch your breath. It's just never there. So I would have these panic attacks. I was so stressed I couldn't eat. I lost a ton of weight. I couldn't sleep because I just had these nightmares of my father's face in the hospital. I mean, it was really rough for about 2 years. Hiring and firing different C-suites to fill the void, and eventually I stepped in as CEO. And I stepped in as CEO following my father's system and increased our leads by 1,176%. I doubled our coaching clients multiple years in a row.
So simple, even a singer could do it.
That's what I have to say, right?
Yeah.
There's a framework that's worked for decades, and, with just minor shifts, even a singer can do it.
It's amazing. But, I mean, it's also amazing that system was in place and that you could come in and actually have such a big impact. So, I mean, what was it? What did you do differently? Was it just implementing that same system and it just worked better for you? Or what made you increase those sales by that amount?
So if anybody is trying to step into a role, I always recommend to start with asking lots of questions and listening and being respectful and seeing what works if you're going into something that's already established. Because if you go in guns a-blazing saying, I'm going to change this ship, you're not going to get a lot of help. So ask lots of questions. We were right at a turning point where majority of our leads were generated from radio ads. So people would hear on the radio, hey, if you'd like to double your sales in the next 12 months, you can get this free report on the 4 ways to double your sales from Chet Holmes. Call in this number and you can get this report. So people would call in, and that's how majority of the business was grown. Now, it was right at the point where people started, it was illegal to pick up your phone while you were driving. So calling into the call center dropped off significantly. And it was right around 2012, 2013 when e-commerce was becoming a lot more popular. In my industry, it was prevalent. Everyone was selling online courses. Now, we still had, a 27 DVD set. I know that they're good fans when they're like, I have the DVDs. Like, we still, okay, the last time was maybe like 2 years ago, but we still will get people that will say that bought the DVDs like 20 years ago, and they're like, my DVD won't work anymore. Can you give me a new one? I'm like, no.
No,
weird.
We only have it on Betamax. Sorry. Sorry.
But it shows how useful it is.
Yeah.
Yes. So it was right during a time when all of our competition was going online and selling things using e-commerce, whereas we sold everything over the phone with a sales rep. So that was a huge shift that I looked at and went, oh man, we have to utilize online. We have to utilize digital marketing. So I dove deep into understanding automations and webinars and the ClickFunnels and at that time, lead pages of the world. And I followed my father's Dream 100 strategy. Should I explain the Dream 100?
We're going to get there. We could go into, I'll take you there.
I used the Dream 100 to generate 30,000 leads without spending a dime on advertising. So that one event was my first event, and I was 26. So that was kind of fun that it generated 30,000 leads using the Dream 100. And I basically took it from one-to-one sales to one-to-many on webinars and automating all of that system.
Amazing. So it's just modernizing what already worked.
Yes. I took the scripts that everyone else used that my father wrote, and I just did them instead.
That's a funny thing though, right? Everyone tries to reinvent the wheel when it's just a matter of adapting what already works. Like if something And I run an agency and I have a consulting program as well. And we talk about this all the time. It's like foundations don't go away. The tried and true principles, like go back in time, even look at copywriters, David Ogilvy, right? Go bring him back into today's time frame and put him on and give him access to Facebook ads or whatever. And you think he'd be talking about attribution or tracking issues? He'd be like, what do you mean? I could just write this and put it out there and everyone sees it? I'll take my chances with everyone seeing it. I'll write really good copy. So it's good that you actually brought that in. And I think there's a lot of industries right now where I think there's a big advantage for people who want to get into business or they want to start figuring out what to do. They could actually go probably buy a lot of these businesses that the boomers are running, that they want out, and their website is still from like 1997 and they have no automation or whatever. And they could probably come in, buy that business and actually turn a real profit really quickly by just automating and modernizing it.
Absolutely. Before COVID, it took a company an average of 6 to 8 years to take their marketing and sales process and turn it into the virtual digital plane. After COVID, it now takes an average of 1.2 years to get digitally savvy. So COVID forced an entire economy, a world economy, to speed up their ability to be online.
And the problem with that is it had nothing to do with tools got easier. It's now leadership just prioritized it.
Well, I'll give you another stat on that, which I find fascinating. So post-COVID, they start implementing the digital, and the year after, so last year, 86% of senior leaders felt that they were going to get fired from their jobs because they didn't know how to manage the new digital plane. Because just because they got there and they got their marketing and sales systems online didn't mean that they were actually efficient at it, or they knew their ROIs, or they knew this whole world that they were now living in.
And that's going to come again with AI, right? That's going to be the whole turning point with AI. Everyone's going to adapt AI. I know businesses that are right now hiring AI consultants to come into their business. I'm like, it's so new. What consultants are there? Like, how are people coming in and revamping giant industries? Like we're talking about like a multi-million dollar company paying to have AI people come in just to present plans on what the future is going to look like. I'm like, so get a tarot card reader. Like, just bring someone like that in. Like, yes, there are people who understand AI, but like, it's just, so you have that, and they're going to give you everything, and they won't even be able to implement anything.
Well, that's interesting that you say that. So I have one of our clients who has his master's in robotics and data analytics, and he's been, implementing AI into different, governmental, countries for the last 4 years. So that makes sense to me. But the AI consultants that are like, I've been here for 2 months. Let me show you what's up.
That's who they're hiring, right? They're not getting the guy from MIT who graduated like 20 years ago in robotics, right? And been in this world. Like, AI has been around us for years, right? Siri is AI. Like, Alexa is AI. We've had it for years. It's just the hot wave. So now I'm like, okay, I can't wait till you spend all this money on someone. It's like when I started in Facebook ads, right? When I first started, I had to convince clients that Facebook ads worked. Like, that was the thing. They were all in on Google. They didn't want to spend any. Now it's like, my niece posts on Instagram, so she could kind of do what you do for us. I'm like, kind of, exactly, almost the same. It's funny you brought up the Dream 100. I was going to go into it later because I think I get asked this question a lot. So we're primarily digital. We talk about online marketing. But I get asked this question a lot, like ad cost. There's a cost to it, and some people don't want to invest the money in doing it. And they sit there and say, well, if it's so expensive or it's whatever, how do I get started? So I said, there's so many ways. There's unlimited ways to get started. But one of the best things you could do is you could literally make a list of your dream 100 people. You could reach out to them and start the conversation that way. And then they come back to me with like, okay, so I'm going to reach out to Nike, Apple. And I'm like, whoa. Realistic Dream 100, right? Apple's not finding you who just graduated and now think you understand social media marketing to hire you to run their $1 billion marketing campaign. So let's kind of have realistic expectations there. But walk us through the Dream 100, and I think it's probably, if not the most underrated client acquisition strategy in the world.
So the Dream 100 was started when my father worked for Charlie Munger, right? So he was given a list of 2,200 potential prospects. And Charlie said, okay, go cold call them. That's what he had at that time. And he thought, that's a lot of cold calls. So he analyzed the 2,200 and he realized that only 167 of them purchased 95% of his product. He was selling advertising at that time. So 95% of them, or 95% of the marketplace was purchased by only 167. So that's where the Dream 100 was born. He led an intensive Dream 100 effort to those 167 to be in their face, in their place, in their space. How could he surround them so that they feel, if they go from, I've never heard of you, to, oh, I think I've heard of them, to, oh, I definitely know them, to, we're working together and I love them. So how can you create that experience where you're everywhere to your potential dream client? And that it could be one dream client that could completely change your world. And so by definition, the Dream 100 is, there's always a smaller number of better buyers than there are all buyers. That means marketing and selling to them is cheaper than marketing and selling to all buyers. I can give an example of this more recently. Would you like that?
Yeah, of course.
So I run these boot camps where I teach people how to build their Dream 100 campaign or how to build out an education-based marketing campaign. And in one of my ones last year, a gentleman went through it. His name is Troy Aberley. In 6 weeks, he generated $8.4 million. In 7 months, he generated $42 million, and he spent less than $50,000 on marketing budget, which is an 83,000% ROI. It's like not half bad. I wish that my real estate portfolio would perform like that. But so what he did was, instead of going out to all of these, he was selling tractors to farmers. So instead of reaching out to another 1,000 farmers, he went back and found people that had already gotten a contract for him that never signed. Now, I can tell you for a fact that it takes on average 8 to 12 contacts to make a sale, and salespeople, 90% of them stop after just 3 contacts. So how many of you have tried to pitch something to somebody and they said no, and then you went away? That is the lowest hanging fruit in your world. If you say, what's a Dream 100? I would start, which is something different than what my father said, but because we have to make sure that we're feeding you first before you go after the bigger fish, you're always doing a Dream 100. You should always be doing a Dream 100. Who are those better buyers that buy more from you more often? So it's a mixture of those that have already bought from you. It's 7 times more expensive to get a new client than it is to keep a current one. So who are those that you've already worked with that you can upsell, cross-sell, right? Just get them to buy more. And then who are the ones you wish you had that with just one of them, that one could completely change your world? So building that list is I have added in that component of low-hanging fruit so that you can get more quickly.
And I love that idea of the low-hanging fruit, because nowadays with VSLs and opt-ins, you have so many people opt in for leads and they don't become buyers. And I think, like you said, it is a low-hanging fruit, but it's also a low-hanging fruit to find something to sell those people or find a way to monetize those people. You paid to acquire them as a lead. Find a way to monetize them. If they're not a fit for you, they may be a good fit for somebody else. Find a way to monetize those leads and get things going. So I actually love the fact that you included it.
Yeah, it was because a lot of people, they read the concept in the Ultimate Sales Machine. They go, I get it. And the hardest thing that people do at first is they can't even come up with that 100. They're like, I'm so overwhelmed, the 100.
But the truth is, it is hard. As someone who's in this space, when I first made my Dream 100, and yes, you're right, the ROI on one client alone, like $100,000 contract coming from, a letter and a stamp, is better than any Facebook ad I've ever ran in my life. But it is hard because because I think everyone just sits down. I could write 100 names of big companies, but when you really want to, like I said, you take the Apple and face and all those things off the list, and Nike off the list, and Netflix off the list, and you actually have to go do research on your marketplace, and then actually have to find those people. It's work, and it's not as easy as just, okay, I'm going to sit down in 15 minutes, I'm going to bang out my 100.
Well, I actually, as part of one of my boot camps, my Dream 100 boot camp, I have a 47-point checklist to determine your dream clients, to find your dream clients. So if people go to ultimatesalesmachine.com and they decide to purchase the book, there's also that little, hey, get this checklist. It is critical because also, so when I decided, okay, I'm going to implement the Dream 100 because that's what my father taught. So I went out and I said, I got to get the Fortune 500 because that's what he did. He went after the Fortune 500. And what I realized is after I got my first Fortune 500 client, that is a really freaking long sales process. And procurement, man, is that a female dog if I ever saw one? That's fairly obnoxious. So I started re-engineering what a dream client actually meant to me. And I realized that, wow, I like it so much better when the CEO is still in control of the company. They can make that buying decision. They don't have to go through another division to get a whole nother group of people's buy-in, right? And so anyone from the my favorites are in the 8 figures trying to get to 9 figures, or 9 figures trying to get into the higher 9 figures. I don't work as many billion-dollar clients now. I mean, we work with 80 of the Fortune 500 now, but I think that I realize that a sales process is more efficient with someone in 8-figure, 9-figure than just going after the multi-billion-dollar company. So for me, a dream client is somebody that the sales process is easier than having to fight for your life to get it.
No, I think that's great, and I think I just think people don't spend the time to just actually think about what they want and who do they want to serve and what their offer is, and I think businesses have become, and this has been a bit controversial because I've said this a lot, and I've taken some hit blowback on this. I think businesses in the last few years have gotten lazy. They've gotten fat, and bloated and just lazy because they didn't have to work so hard. Like, you could run an ad on Facebook during COVID time and get a 5x return on whatever you were doing because attention was at an all-time high and costs were low. So it was just a dream situation. Now all of a sudden you have to understand business, right? You have to understand numbers. You have to understand margins and costs and numbers and all this. And business owners have to be business owners now.
Absolutely. Well, statistically, so we did a ton of research on what's happened in past recessions, and we found this one research study that analyzed the last 3 recessions because 90% of executives feel that we're going to hit a recession by the end of the year. So in the last 3 recessions, they analyzed 4,700 companies. And of those 4,700, 91% of them either were stagnant during the recession, lost money, or went bankrupt. 91%. There were only 9% of those companies that actually grew when nobody was spending money. So it's, as you're saying, people are going to have to get smarter. People are going to have to get smarter way quicker. And they realized that there were a certain number of trends that this 9% did versus the 91%.
Like they didn't cut advertising.
That actually wasn't one of them from this particular study, but I have heard that, and I know that we've shared, some that get forward during hard times or those that invest in advertising. Actually, the number one thing was that the CEO or the executive team swooped in to try and solve every problem. So that's what the 91% did, because when times are rough, the leader wants to go in and solve and get into the nuts and bolts. But what the 9% did is that they gave more responsibility to their staff to make those decisions that were on the front lines, so that the CEO and the C-suite could focus on what they do best, which is planning, navigating ahead of how can we outsmart this thing. So instead of swooping in, they did the opposite. They empowered their team to make better decisions. That was actually the number one thing.
That's interesting. It makes sense if you think about it, but yeah, I would have imagined like cutting advertising, because you look at Rolex that grew because Tag cut their advertising. You look at Lucky Strike versus Camel. You look at all car companies. There's all these situations where they pulled back while the other competition land grabbed and investing. So it's interesting. I have a question. The ultimate sales machine, what do you think makes it so unique that it stands the test of time? And then you hear people who get into sales, and this is like the number one book. Like, we were joking that, like, have you heard about this book? But I mean, if you're in business and you're in sales and you haven't read this book, I don't think you could call yourself a salesperson until you read this book. What do you think that's made it stand true for the test of time? Like, advertising books have gone out. There's been sales books written that kind of just are irrelevant or obsolete right now. What do you think about this book makes it so true then as it is now? Or so true now as it is then, I should say.
I think one is the fact that my father actually did everything that's in that book, right? He was in the trenches. He did the 100,000 hours it took to understand. So that's one, is it came from his own experiences of what he proved in the field and got great results from. And then number two, he had a belief system that you give your best away for free. Because many books, right, they use it as an upsell to try and get you into more services. They're kind of just pitching you a lot of the time, or they're giving you only the sizzle and they don't give you the steak. But that book, every single bloody page is a takeaway, and he does such a great job of entertaining you as well. So I don't know how many people really know, but my father wanted to be a movie writer. He wanted to be a producer, and he wrote several scripts, and he sold one to Warner Brothers. So he's very much into entertainment and stories. And so the book is full of these entertaining, engaging stories that, honestly, he had done thousands upon thousands of keynotes in front of rooms. And when I went to write the new edition, it took me 4 years to write the new edition. And it was day after day of me testing the content that I was going to put into the book. So people would say, "Oh, you're writing a 13th chapter. What is that on?" I'd say, "It's about service." And they'd look at me like, "Service, great." I'm like, "No, it's about gratitude." And they're like, "Oh, yeah, gratitude." "Oh, it's about having a positive life." And they're like, "Yeah, okay." And then I found this letter at 4 a.m. that my father had written. And he said in the last 6 months, he has generated more wealth than the prior 8 years combined. It was because of this one thing. So in that 13th chapter, it is the encore he never got to give on how to live a rich and full life. Ooh, right? But it took me 4 years of literally talking to every single person that I came into contact with to craft and create what that would be. So I think it's the reps that you put in, that repetition, right? My father teaches it. The mastery isn't about doing 4,000 different things. It's about doing 12 things 4,000 times. Yeah.
What do you think the biggest holdback is for businesses right now when it comes to sales, when it comes to doubling, growing their sales, whatever it is? What's holding most of these businesses back?
Well, first thing would be, so if we look at a business maybe that has been in business for 10 years, 15 years ago, the average company was on 7 different marketing mediums. Today, the average business is on 13 marketing mediums with 5 social media platforms and 3 paid advertising sites. So we are doing double the amount of work for a fraction of the results because people just aren't hearing you. There is so much information out there. My father used to talk about how there was 40,000 commercial messages that your prospects saw a day. That was when there was only the elite that could market and sell their businesses. Today, 3.8 billion people have a social media profile that put out crap all day, every day. So the attention and trying to get the attention of our prospects is so much more difficult than my father could have ever dreamed. We call it the clutter factor. So the problem is majority of businesses, so Only 5% of small to medium-sized businesses actually reach their goal, their yearly goal, 5% of them. And it's because majority of people don't even set out for a goal, first off. So having a goal is critical to know where you want to grow. Do you want to grow by 20%? Do you want to grow by 30%? Would you like to double your personal income? Would you like to have work 4 days a week instead of 7 days a week? What is your goal? So having a goal, and then who do you need to speak to get to that goal faster? Because majority of businesses say, yeah, I know who I'm marketing to. But like 95% of the time, businesses, I'm sure you can relate to this, right? Businesses actually, if you market to everyone, you're marketing to no one. And in this space where there is so much clutter, where there is so many shiny objects, where there's so much noise, you have to get so hyper clear on who you're serving, because then you have to know how you're speaking to them so that it pierces through the shiitake to get right to the front door and right to the nose of your prospect, right?
So what tips do you have on that? On crafting an incredible, call it the irresistible offer that pierces the noise and gets through?
Yeah. So we call it, we do this fun little exercise called the stadium pitch. So imagine that you were in a stadium full of your prospects. What if I handed the mic, person that's listening right now, what would be the title of your talk to keep the whole room in their seats wanting to hear what you have to say? Now, when my father first invented this stadium pitch concept, it was before the internet. So 100% of companies would say, well, my company is XYZ. I've been in business for 20 years. I do this for clients, and I would love to come and talk to you about that. If you are talking about yourself, your product or service, you are only going to reach an average of 3% of the marketplace. Let's say you make 100 cold calls, you'll reach 3 of them that will say, yes, they want to talk to you. If you're doing ads, right, the average conversion rate from ads is 2.6%. So roughly around that 3% mark, right? So 3% are in the buying now category. 7% are open to it. 90% of that room is either not thinking about it, think that they're not interested, or definitely not interested. So what we recommend to pierce through that clutter is to lead with an education that grabs your prospect where they're at right now, whether they're not thinking about you, think that they're not interested, or definitely not interested, to get their attention so that you can educate them enough to bring them into the buying now category.
I like that.
Give an example of this.
So yeah, you have an example of this?
I do.
Okay, let's do it.
Do
you have an example of this? This is what you do. Of course you have an example of this.
So we had a really crazy client out of Dubai where they sold high-end real estate, and they were selling to billionaires. And they used to talk about, I'd love to educate you on granite countertops and the ocean views of these beautiful luxury apartments. And when we did research, we realized that billionaires, the 2 things that they can't buy, time and health. So we led with a stadium pitch of why wealthy CEOs are at risk for heart disease, diabetes, and premature death, and what you can do about it. Now, can you imagine a bunch of real estate brokers looking at us like, you've got to be kidding me. There's no way we're going to talk about that. We like talking about ocean views, right? But what kept their prospect up was that. So leading with that education, meeting your prospect where they're at, is one way to pierce through that clutter factor.
And then how do you transition that over into the sales, into the actual pitch?
So the way that people buy today is dramatically different than what it was 10 years ago. 10 years ago, if you went out to buy a car, you would go to an average of 6 dealerships before making a purchasing decision. Today, you go to an average of 13 websites and only 1.8 dealerships. So our buying decisions are happening online. So the average B2B, they'll look at 5 pieces of content on your website before they decide to pull up a phone and call you or say, hey, I'm going to talk to a sales rep or purchase. So it's critical that your digital presence is educating your prospects, meeting them where they're at, having more meaningful conversations about what's truly keeping them up at night, so that you are the only logical conclusion. And I have a whole framework around this, but I don't think we have time.
Oh, that's great.
But it's in chapter 4.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And I think you come in as the expert, right? You come in it's almost like Jay Abraham's preeminence, right? That
exactly.
Like sticking around, like and making sure that they always see you, and that's the point. I post on social media, and I see this all the time with clients too. They're like, I posted, and it's not making any headway, so I just stopped. I said, but you don't understand. I've had clients that came to me. I've been following you for a year, and I've been meaning to reach out, and I just decided to reach out now. Like, you've been following me for a year. List consuming from a podcast point of view, from this, and now you're reaching out. What made you wait a year? And they're like, I don't know. I was listening, and over time. But you know what? The truth is, those customers, those clients become your best and longest staying clients because they didn't have to be sold into something. They were already sold before they even got on a call with you.
Same with retiring top talent too. All of my hires have been from my social media. It's crazy. When they're into your ethos and what you're saying and what they believe in, it's so much easier to retain talent.
So how do you translate all this, right? The Dream 100, the outreach, the old school sales approaches and bring it into online? How can people listening use online advertising, use their social media to, implement the Dream 100? Is it just DMing your Dream 100 now, and that becomes the new way? Like, what's the way to do it now?
So, all the tactics will always be changing, right? So, my father taught the tactics. So, the whole point is to create top of mind awareness. All marketing is to create top of mind awareness so that as soon as your prospect says, "Hey, I need a product service like yours," you are the first person that they think of. So whether you're posting on social, that is why you're posting on social. If you're sending out an email, that is why, ads, all of these things. That is the goal, is to create top of mind awareness, Toma. So whether you decide to send direct mail pieces, whether you decide to send a ringless voicemail, whether you cold call them, email them, DM them, you have to know your goal. And the goal is to create as if you are everywhere. So the more that you can circle your best clients, potential clients, the better. I'll give you an example of one that I use, social, because that doesn't cost you a dime to implement, and it's fun. So I met the CEO of ClickFunnels, Dave Woodward, at an event. Wonderful man. And we decided to follow each other on social media. And he posted on Instagram nearly every day. And every time he posted, I would reply to every single post that he made. So he posted about his children, how he made a bet that they couldn't go without sugar for 4 days, and they broke within 2 hours or something like that. I went, that's so funny. You should have charged them extra. He posted about his wife and how happy she was with the Christmas lights. And I said, you should show your wife Christmas lights multiple times a year for how happy she was. He posted about his boots.
And you were responding like commenting or private messaging him?
Both.
Okay.
On his posts and in his reels, everywhere. Everywhere that he posted, I acknowledged. You know what I was doing? I was showing that I was listening. I was showing that I cared. I was giving him his advice. It had nothing to do with my business advice. It was all like, he bought a pair of shoes and he was about to go on a hike. And I was like, hey, you got to wear those in before you go on a hike. I climbed Kilimanjaro in new boots. It was terrible, right? So every step, all I'm doing, because you're 65% of the way to a sale if you just build rapport. And rapport means they trust you, they like you, they respect you. It doesn't have to be that you're showing them the best and the brightest of what you do in your pitch. 97% of our prospects feel that salespeople are too pushy today. So what did I do? I just showed that I cared. I showed that I was listening. I was acknowledging. I was being a resource. I was being helpful. After 3 months of this every single freaking day, but I made it fun, right? I'm like, this is hilarious. This is going to be a great story one day, I swear. After 3 months, they came back to me and they said, hey, we'd like to purchase 650 of the Ultimate Sales Machine and send them to all of our best clients, our 2 Comma Club. Would that be okay? I went, yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
And then in the new edition of the book, they purchased another 1,000 books for the new edition. And when they bought a core story from us, which is an education-based marketing approach, that stadium pitch concept I talked about, even bigger, instead... Russell reached out to me on Instagram and says, hey, yeah, I'd like to buy that core story. You still do those core stories? I'm like, yeah, no problem. We can jump on a 22-minute call and I can give you all the details. He's like, I'm already sold. I don't even need to know the price. You just send me an invoice. I'm like, you don't even need to know the price. When you have that much trust and respect with your dream clientele, that should be the experience that is created.
It's a blank check.
That's why. So good.
Yeah.
So when it comes to social selling, I mean, people that use social outsell their peers by 78% compared to those that don't. So just being in their face, in their place, in their space with value and being that bright spot in their day does a crazy amount.
So where do you stand on there's two camps, right? You post on social and that's your awareness. That's your propaganda machine pretty much of being put into work. And then there are the other camp who sits there and says every post needs to have a call to action. Where do you stand?
So the way that I run out my content is most ideally I'll spend 2 hours a month on my content where I'll record anywhere between 4 to 8 podcasts. And my podcasts are providing value. It's educating. It's client testimonials. And every single podcast that I handed off to my team, they make podcast episodes, and every single podcast at the end of the episode will say, and hey, by the way, did you get the copy of the new edition of the Ultimate Sales Machine? Or hey, by the way, did you opt in to find out about the new dojo? So there'll be calls to action at the end of every podcast, but it's a 15 to 20 minute podcast very often, and 60 seconds of it is a call to action. Then my team takes that and splices it up into 1 minute clips or quotable quotes. And so that produces our content every single day that we're posting on social. So every single post on social isn't a call to action. Some of them are. And then we track every post that gets posted on social to figure out which ones have the natural organic reach, which ones get the most likes, shares, saves, comments. And then we take that and we repurpose that into our ads that lead to our offers. So that's kind of how my whole machine goes.
Talk to me about the dojo. Because I see your background, and for the listeners, you go on YouTube and watch. There is a background. Go check it out on YouTube to see it. But yeah, tell me a little bit about this.
Well, just so many people that read the book and they go, wow, I understand the theory and I love it, but I don't know how to actually turn the theory into practical results. And last year when I started running these boot camps, so people that buy a course online, 97% of them never finish the course. 97%. So only 3% actually finish it. That's not even counting up the 3% how many actually get results from that course. So when I found that out, I was really upset about how dismal that is. So when I created these boot camps to be more interactive so that they could take it from theory into actionable advice. And after 30 days, 42% of them generated leads, 33% of them generated sales. So we were 10x what the industry is as far as giving an education and making you actually get results from it. But then we would do it for 5 weeks, and then people would drop off in between each boot camp. So then we created the dojo to be able to help it be an ongoing, just 1 hour a week to improve your business. After an entire year, holy cow, you will be a completely different company if you're just refining it step by step. It's just little incremental steps. It's not the sexiest.
Incremental compounding steps.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's what the dojo is, and it's more of a community-based, interactive.
So what if the listeners want to join the dojo and have you as their sensei? How do they do that?
ChetHolmes.com. I would go to ChetHolmes.com and you can apply there in the solutions that we have. It says the dojo.
So before I let you go, I actually have two questions, but I want to ask this question first because I think this is a little personal, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on, and I just want to hear your perspective on it. Your father, incredible, loved by many. Was there ever a moment where it was almost like on you sitting there saying, can I translate that? Are they going to always want Chet? Are they always going to want that? And I'm just the daughter, right? And am I the daughter that just got the company and I got to prove myself to everything right now? And they're going to be like, okay, well, I don't want to work with her. She got handed a company. Chet built the company. I want to work with Chet. And you kind of have to come into this role. I can imagine how that must be tough, because I see family businesses where that's happened, where people come in and all of a sudden they have to take over, but people are like, no, you're not your dad, or you're not your mom, right? Or whatever it is. Yep. What was that experience like for you, if you don't mind sharing?
Well, 60% of second generation businesses fail. So it definitely is.
And that's even higher, by the way, on the third generation. The third generation pretty much is the one that kills all businesses. But
kills all businesses.
Yeah, kill all businesses.
Yes. Yeah. It's a sobering statistic. For me, it's definitely, it's been a decade since my father passed. And there's been so many levels of that. At first, for the first 2 years, it was like, I don't want to touch this with a 10-foot pole. I feel like I'm just going to go into the early grave that my father was 55 when he died. I don't want to put myself into an early grave right next to him, because I know I'm so much like him in work ethic, and, I'll just work myself to death. So that was difficult. And then when I finally did step in as CEO, that was scared. I was scared shit. Talky.
You can swear if you really want, but yeah.
So, I'm just a singer. How could I do this? I'm a woman. Everyone else is a man, right? Everyone's a baby boomer. I'm a millennial. Like, so many.
And even back then, like he came up in a man's world, right? It was.
Oh yeah.
B2B was man to man, pretty much. You might as well have said that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And my guru helped me a lot with this. So I study under an Indian saint. She's the founder of a nonprofit called Divine Bliss International. And she said that I could step in and I could be CEO and I could carry this on, because otherwise it wasn't going to survive. Because we just couldn't. It was as if it was a whole body of all these different moving parts, and without the heart, it just couldn't function like it was supposed to. And she said, but you'd have to do it differently. You'd have to do it the way you'd have to do it differently in many different ways, but you have to be you as well. So I'm trying to break down more succinctly this process. But so that was a huge leap of deciding, okay, I'll be CEO. That was huge. And then 4 years ago, I did another leap of okay, I'm going to take on writing the book. And when I first asked everybody what they'd like to see in a new edition of the book, the resounding response was, don't change it, it's perfect, which was very stressful. Thanks. That doesn't help.
Don't do it is my advice. Yeah.
Right. So that's why it took me 4 years to write 100 pages. 4 years. I mean, I wrote way more than that. It took 94 versions to finalize chapter 13, which is 10 pages. I went through 94 versions. I counted on my computer how many versions. So that was a really big deal, and I had to adjust a lot of my father's methodologies because he came up with them before the internet. So having to while they still made sense, it was kind of something you had to read between the lines as opposed to let me tell you, this is how you do it on social. This is how you do it with automations, right? So I built that out. And then even today, I stand on that same doorstep. It's as if I have to make that decision every day that I come into work, because I had in full transparency, I had a huge setback last week. A member of my team left, and it was because they wanted to work for the company that I am creating, and they didn't want to work for the company that my father had. And they felt that I wasn't being progressive enough in my pursuits of my dreams for what I see business should become. My father was a part of a time where you could push and force people to buy. Today, you can't do it. You have to educate. My father taught education, but it's on a whole nother level now, and you have to, give them more information before they even talk to a salesperson. There's so much.
And not be so transactional on everything that you do.
Absolutely. And I'm very different from my father in the sense that my father was a fighter. He had a chip on his shoulder. He was a self-made man. He came from nothing. He was born in the Bronx, got kicked out of his home when he was 16, had to fend for himself. I did not have that life. I was loved and adored by my parents. Anything that I wanted when I was in the pursuit of my dreams, they just assisted me with so that I could make leaps and bounds. So it's a very different upbringing. So I'm much more focused on how do I create an impact?
Do you think that hurt? Do you think that hurt work ethic for you a little bit? Do you think knowing that like you had that, for lack of better words, and I don't mean like that safety net of like and of that support of that anything you need to achieve your dreams, don't worry, we're going to help you and push you ahead. Do you find that I feel like when I see it sometimes in entrepreneurs and even myself sometimes, because I grew up with a similar upbringing, is that there's a lack of drive where I look at someone who like had to do it. They slept in their car and they had this hunger that there's always that missing piece of the hunger. I could always be so hungry, but not as hungry as that person.
I think that I have an intense hunger. It's just differently focused. So, before my father passed, my dad said, I'll support you in whatever. So when everyone else wrote one album, I had written, produced, released, and toured on 4 albums, like in the span of an 8-year period. So I was still in that work ethic place, but it wasn't necessarily that I was chomping after getting dollars in my bank account, because I didn't really have to focus as much on that, right?
It gave you the freedom to actually do what you wanted to do.
And that's what my father said, that he sacrificed his life and he worked his entire life to be able to give me and my brother the opportunity to do whatever we'd like. Because he really wanted to be, a movie star, basically. He wanted to write movies. He wanted to be in Hollywood. And he wanted to give us that opportunity. And then after he passed, man, I had a voracious desire to understand what is the purpose for us being on this freaking planet. And some people say, okay, I'm going to start to do yoga. Maybe I'll do some meditation classes. I moved into my guru's healing center. I shaved my head. I wore all white. I sold off the rolls and the boats and the properties. And I just lived this minimalist life of like, what truly is the point? And I just became dedicated to service 24/7. So I'm rather intense. It's not, I don't think that, So my voraciousness to seek, I think, is similar to my father. It's just differently focused. And so now the way that I grow the company and the way that I focus, we're up 270% over last year. We doubled our sales last year. Like, things are good, but it's not because I'm like, I got to get these dollars in my bank account. It's, I care for the people that we're serving. If we can assist them to make their lives easier while also having an abundant life, then I have truly reached the mission that I'm looking for, which is simplifying growth to give business leaders access to the ability to reach their fullest potential, whatever that may look like. So
I love it.
I don't know if I answered that.
No, it's a great answer. And since you were transparent, I'll be transparent as well. Like, I've been running this business, and we went on our first family vacation in 4 years. This past December, we took the kids, and I'm watching. And when I say first family vacation, it was like disconnected. I'm gone. Like, I travel for work all the time, but the first time we took the kids with us, and we went and fully disconnected from work for like a week. And I was watching my kids' faces, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, and I remember there's. You got to go to the pool early to put your towel down on the chairs and reserve the chairs by the pool so you get the good spots. So I wake up early. I'd be the one to do that. And I was walking. I was just like looking out at the ocean, and it just like something like clicked. Like it was just like when people say like it just clicked or just happened. Those moments actually exist, right? Like they happen, and something just clicked. I'm like, this is all I want. This is what I want. Like, and not this is what I just want for me. I want this for everyone. That everyone who sits there says it's an and or an or. You can't have the business and the life of your dreams. You can't have both. You certainly can. Like I was sacrificing everything I wanted in the future that I already had now. Like, why would I sacrifice it now to get in the future? That makes no sense. I have it now. Why am I sacrificing it? It made zero sense, and that became my mission for like the whole consulting side of what we do, and from an agency side is work with people who understand that and want that, and just that they can have that. And I think most people don't think they can because they have no clue. Like you said, they have no goals. They don't know where they want. They're like Alice in Wonderland when they asked the cat, what direction should I go? Say, well, where do you want to go? And she said, I don't really care. Then it doesn't matter which way you go, right? So, I love that you did that. I'll let you go with this. What's easier, being a singer, going out on stage and singing to a bunch of people, or being an entrepreneur?
I think being an entrepreneur is easier.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, to make it as a singer,
okay, fair enough.
Right?
Good point.
I would close 95 to 99% of a room on my CD sales, and that was still $5.
Yeah.
Right? That you're barely taking home enough to feed your family. Whereas today, I get paid so much more for just an hour of my time. So
for the value you bring in that hour, not for the hour, but for the value you bring in that hour.
It's from 30 years of being on stages. I literally have been on stages since I was 5. Yeah. It's not like it happened overnight.
Do you think all that time, like going on stage, being a singer, actually prepared you to become a better entrepreneur?
Absolutely. It was one of the only skill sets that I could utilize when I stepped over. Is I'm used to entertaining, I'm used to being engaging, and that was easier to then, okay, my script changed. I'm no longer singing. I'm now educating on marketing and sales, but I have the script because my father already wrote it. So,
I mean, you said it. Your dad was an entertainer. You're an entertainer. Maybe that's the correlation towards the success that you both had. Amanda, thank you. So I could talk to you for another hour, but I don't think you want to. I think you have other places to go. So
I have another meeting.
For the listeners who want to reach out, how do they get in touch with you, or how do they learn more?
You can either go to ultimatesalesmachine.com, or I'm on all social medias, but you can find me on Instagram is where I spend most of my time. And Amanda Holmes was taken by some crazy woman that won't use her Instagram. So I had to use my salsa name, which is Amandita Holmes. Holmes spelled like Sherlock. Amandita Holmes.
Amazing. Amanda, thank you so much.